Good evening and welcome to the Olympic News with Hugo and Beatrice. We will be your hosts for today. Hugo, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm worried. We're seeing rising tensions once again at the Olympic Games since boycotts and disagreements between 1948 and 1980. Today, China and Taiwan compete as different teams as China itself and Taiwan as Chinese Taipei, which is very strange. The distance and distinctions between the two are not always clear. We know a lot of you might not even know about this.
So, since 1940, China and Taiwan have long debated on Taiwan's sovereignty as a nation. We all know that. These tensions then, of course, manifested itself as in the Olympics. Taiwan wished to be recognized as a separate team from China, but to do so would mean that they are their own state, to which China completely disagrees. Taiwan belongs to China, they say. After the communist takeover of China in 1949, the ROC relocated to Taiwan, and the newly formed PRC competed under the same name, representing China. The ROC, also known as Taiwan, boycotted the 1952 Olympics, saying the PRC had no right to represent China. On top of that, the IOC labeled it as being part of China, and the PRC. This greatly angered Taiwan, withdrawing from any international competition. Many discussions happened inside the IOC to tackle this problem and find a solution to the conflict. Finally, the IOC allowed Taiwan to participate under the name of ROC, but then the PRC withdrew for several years as a form of protest. It seems that every step taken forward takes us two steps back. We can see how the IOC was completely ineffective at making decisions without the other parties involved. They did a poor job. However, in 1979, China, Taiwan, and the IOC were able to sit down and reach an agreement, the Nagoya resolutions. Nearly 40 years after the start of the conflict, it allowed both teams to participate, but we can't exactly say that either party initial outcome were met. So let's take a look now at actual footage of Olympic delegates' reaction from the Nagoya resolution.
Thank you all for being here. The AOC has seen the rising concerns and worries of China and Taiwan's participation in the Olympics. We have been working on solving the conflict since the start. We tried talking to the parties independently in one-on-one meetings. We managed to see their aims and share information, trying to reach an agreement that would satisfy all parties involved. To our surprise, China and Taiwan were straightforward and honest about the intentions and ambitions. This allowed us to sit together and act as mediators between the two. After 10 intense months of discussions and negotiations, we have reached an agreement. However, this was put forward to the IOC committee and has to be voted and agreed by the majority. The admission of Taiwan into the IOC is entirely dependent on changing 5 terms: their name, flag, anthem, emblem, and constitution. Furthermore, in a result of a postal ballot announced yesterday in Lausanne, Switzerland, committee members voted 62 to 17 in favor of allowing both China and Chinese Taipei to participate in the 1980 Winter and Summer Olympics. We can finally conclude that the Nagoya resolution has been agreed to. The conflict has been resolved and both countries are free to participate in the Olympics. Thank you very much.
Esteemed International Olympic Committee, we have fought tough and stood our ground. We want to be recognized as an independent country from communist China. We want the Olympics and all international sporting events to show and reflect this. We believe that the IOC would help us and that they would see us as rightful participants, but they didn't. We feel betrayed and abandoned by an organization which should have been neutral. We are not satisfied with the resolution, but it is the reality for now.
Even before entering the negotiations, we have strongly desired for Taiwan to be able to attend the Olympic Games and other international sporting events as part of One China. Taiwan has always been a dependent territory of our great country, and we are glad to be able to support our Chinese Taipei Territorial Olympic Committee in their representation in the Olympic Games. The Olympic committees have just voted for the Nagoya resolution with an overwhelming majority of the world agreeing with our One China vision. The new Chinese Taipei Territorial Olympic Committee will represent our Taiwanese territory with a new name, flag, anthem, emblem, and constitution. I believe that this shows the international support for our One China vision, and we are proud to have the world behind us as we rejoin the Olympics in 1980. Thank you.
Just to clarify, an IOC agreement has to be voted on by all members, not only those involved in the agreement, and accepted by the majority, which was the case with the Nagoya resolution.
Yeah, interesting clip. I agree, Taiwan was allowed to compete, yet the latter were still permitted to do so. One could even say that Taiwan got the shorter end of the stick. Despite Taiwan being able to participate, they had to change their official team name to Chinese Taipei, the national flag could not be used, nor their national anthem, which seems like a very strange deal for Taiwan. They even boycotted the Olympics a year after the Nagoya resolution, but eventually rejoined the next one in a seemingly defeated manner.
Now, here's an interesting question. Did the IOC do a poor job, or could they have done a better one?
Let's look at the facts of the Nagoya negotiations. The conflict was a clear intergroup conflict between China and Taiwan, with the IOC as a mediator, with other countries involved too. At first glance, it may seem to be cooperative negotiation, where they work together for the best outcome, but in fact, it was a competitive negotiation, where there was a clear win-lose situation. Each party wants the complete opposite of what the other wants. Were they anchored more to China than they were to Taiwan? Maybe, who knows? They tried using an integrative method in negotiation. Although the outcome wasn't necessarily a potential win-win structure, there was a clear winner and loser. In hindsight, we can see who it was. There's a strong concern for both sides rather than a low concern for the other. But at the end of the day, the IOC was a vested interest mediator, which is one who has strong interest in the outcome and seeks a solution that meets their interests. They want to push for their own agenda. IOC has the ability to enforce and implement an agreement. The IOC relays the verdict to the host country per Olympic event to only use the name, flag, and anthem, which is why they carried through with the Nagoya resolution in spite of Taiwan's initial dissatisfaction. Ironically, the winner was the mediator, the IOC, who got what they wanted, while other parties had to agree reluctantly. The IOC invited unreciprocated offers as their hard bargaining tactics. They made concessions to the original offer. But one may also argue that the IOC had placed the right amount of distance between the two parties, such that they both got a piece of what they initially wanted. They needed to distinguish China from Taiwan to keep Taiwan satisfied, but they also needed to blur the lines between the two countries to keep China satisfied. For example, the name provided for Taiwanese athletes leave much room for ambiguity. In China, the name translates to Taipei, China, suggesting that the team is indeed a part of China. In Taiwan, however, the name symbolizes that Taiwan, or Taipei, is culturally Chinese rather than a part of the PRC. In English, one may interpret Chinese in Chinese Taipei as either separated or connected to China. Culture played a large role as China and Taiwan felt that they were complete opposites. Compared to China, Taiwan presents itself as much more democratic. Its independence from China has also been a vital part of their society. Meanwhile, the Chinese firmly believe in the one China principle under the notion that there is only one united China, with Taiwan, its other autonomous states like Hong Kong and Macau, and the South China Sea. However, this has gained much more importance over the years. Additionally, the perception has seen a similar evolution, with selective and sunk costs being the main indicators.
So, for those who don't know, selective perception is when we allow our expectations to influence how we perceive the world. Meaning that we are so convinced of our point of view that we will not listen to the perspective of others. This creates great areas of conflict, and mainly with issues such as this one, where neither China or Taiwan will listen to the other's view. Some costs are retrospective costs, which have been incurred in the past and cannot be recovered, so the original conflict is still present and influencing current behavior. This is a reason why the issue at hand is so complicated and hard to resolve, and it keeps coming back.
Thanks, Hugo, that explains a lot.
So the IOC has been having so much trouble because of this. Neither side is willing to give in and accept the other's view, because it would mean they accept it and would lose. The deeper you go into the conflict, the more you realize the conflict is extremely complex.
Exactly. But for now, let's go with our correspondent in Beijing. He will tell us more about what's going on right now. Hi Charles, how are you? How's the conflict going?
Thank you. Yes, as you mentioned, the feeling has changed a lot. Both countries are rivals not only in sports. However, Taiwanese athletes want to keep politics aside and earn as many medals for their country as possible. Taiwanese voters turned down a proposed Olympic name change to Taiwan by 55.9% to 45.2% in a 2018 referendum. Why? Well, many say that they want to leave politics aside from such an important sporting event. Others say that they don't want to antagonize China or their powerful army, and the debate is still a hot topic here. Furthermore, the IOC vetoed the motion, saying it could create problems among other teams, well, in this case, mainly China. I must admit that post-split in the 70s, some Taiwanese still felt that they were culturally similar and connected to China, but today the divide grows ever wide, and ideology and behavior have changed to the extent that most, if not all, of Taiwan do not identify with the Chinese anymore. On the other hand, China still claims Taiwan as part of their country, which shows a clear conflict. Presidential spokeswoman for Taiwan, Kola Sotaka, tweeted that we are not Chinese, not from Taipei, we are indigenous from Taiwan. And many countries support Taiwan in their claims, such as Japan. During the Tokyo Olympics, they allowed the Taiwan national anthem to be played when Taiwanese athletes won a gold medal. And in the recent Beijing Olympics, many countries boycotted China, including Taiwan, the USA, and the UK. But a large majority of Asian countries have refrained from antagonizing China due to the need for healthy trade relations with Chinese companies. And we see again how politics is highly involved and intertwined with sporting events despite what athletes claim. I also want to mention that this is a growing area of conflict because the IOC has refrained from intervening in political aspects while saying that they want to remain neutral. And in 2022, the president of the IOC actually condemned China for violating the Olympic Charter's call for political neutrality. And this has allowed the conflict to escalate as the mediator is practically non-existent. There are huge implications lingering from the Nagoya resolution, and tensions keep rising between both teams. It will be interesting to see if the resolution is kept and enforced by the IOC, or if it will possibly change in the future, to fit the change in political preferences around the globe, and even in the IOC. Back to you, Hugo.
Thank you. So we see how the past conflict is still not resolved, despite there being an agreement. Chi Cheng, a 3-time Olympian Taiwanese athlete, described having to compete under a different name as aggravating, humiliating, and depressing. He then added how Taiwanese athletes were sometimes confused with Chinese athletes due to the team's name. This is very humiliating and derogatory towards them, and the IOC should do something and not just stand by.
It's even coming back and making this worse. It seems like nobody likes the agreement, but it's still there. We can agree that after research and several meetings, the Nagoya resolution was the best option for the time being. All parties were able to see this, and that's why they agreed to it. But it's clear that there has been no long-term satisfaction for either Taiwan or China.
Indeed. And thank you all for tuning in to Olympic News with your host Beatrice and Hugo. If you want to stay in the loop, we are on every week at the same time. Thank you and see you.